Back in June 2011, Ricky Rubio stepped off the plane at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport to a view of reporters and Timberwolves fans. Rubio's first trip to Minnesota was a big deal because he was finally going to play in the NBA after the Timberwolves drafted him 2 years prior. He was a 20-year-old that was looked at as a savior of Minnesota basketball. They were a franchise that had been through multiple losing seasons and recently lost their superstar power forward in a trade to Boston a few years ago. Rubio getting selected to Minnesota meant they can move past the losing and hopefully enter what was going to be an exciting new era. We obviously know now how that experience went since he was drafted. Rubio has had an interesting basketball career and has one of the more complicated basketball legacies in Minnesota. In today's video, I'm partnering with DraftKings Sportsbook. The basketball season is entering one of its most important parts of the year, and if you want to get in on the action, DraftKings Sportsbook is dishing out an offer to new customers that you do not want to miss out on. Bet $5 on a pregame moneyline for any basketball game, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets deposited in your account if your bet wins. Yes, you heard correctly. DraftKings is giving all new customers $150 in bonus bets if their $5 pregame moneyline wager that is placed on a basketball game wins. All you have to do is make a prediction to get in on it. You can do that with DraftKings' same game parlays. You can combine multiple bets from the same game, like which player will score first and which team will be winning at the end of the first quarter, to give yourself a shot at even bigger winnings. And if you live in a state where mobile sports betting is not available, you can still get in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code Kane, bet $5 on any pregame moneyline for any basketball game, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code Kane only at DraftKings Sportsbook. When I was 14 years old and played youth sports, I played against other people in my age group. When Ricky Rubio was 14 years old, he wasn't competing against people in his age group. He was a professional basketball player in Spain, competing against people in their 20s and 30s. He was playing with guys like Pau Gasol and Jose Calderon. So not only was Rubio going to be younger than most of the players in his future draft class, but he had multiple years of professional experience over them. That's a rare situation because most young players in the NBA draft have no pro experience or only played 1 or 2 years of college. The adjustment to the NBA world was going to be easier for Rubio. In Spain's ACB league, he was named the best point guard in 2008 and the league's defensive player of the year in 2009. Pau Gasol, the number 3 pick in the 2001 NBA draft, said in an interview that he was nothing compared to Rubio when he was 17. His maturity and confidence level is extremely high for his age and for what he's doing. At 14, Rubio became the youngest player in Spain's ACB league, and when he was 17, he started for Spain against the United States Redeem Team in the Olympic gold medal game, the team with LeBron, Kobe, and Dwayne Wade. That's where the hype and excitement around Rubio reached its peak. He was an icon in the international basketball world because of his super flashy play style, on-the-fly creativity, and defense at a young age. At the time on YouTube in the late 2000s, his no-look pass highlight clips got a lot of views. A lot of people get views now because YouTube is bigger, but back then it was kind of a special thing if people were searching your highlight clips and you weren't in the NBA. There was a mystery about him because he didn't come up through the ranks like everyone else. This is one of the reasons why people believed in Rubio's potential in the NBA. He was more tested than the other guys in his class. The level of competition he was playing in the Spanish League and in the FIBA tournaments was very high. He's practicing with and playing against professionals every night. It was a bit similar to the pro Luka Doncic arguments back in 2018 when he was drafted. Another big thing for Rubio was his playmaking and defense. Rubio was a 6'4" point guard with quick lateral movement and strength to defend NBA guards. His defense was advanced for his age. For rookies, defense is probably the biggest learning curve, but it was projected to be a strength for Ricky, and in the year 2023, that was correct. He's been a pretty good defender his whole career. And one more quote from an NBA player at the time, Kevin Durant. He noticed Rubio's defense back in the FIBA World Championships. There was a sequence where he stole the ball from Derrick Rose twice in one half. KD said he's an amazing defender. I think that's the one thing that stood out to me was how he pressured the ball. He disrupted our offense a bit. He's crafty. Everybody knew Rubio was going to get taken high in the 2009 draft, but the question was which team was going to take him. The team that would end up drafting him was the Minnesota Timberwolves. They took him with the 5th pick, and then they used their 6th pick with Johnny Flynn. The Wolves had now drafted 2 point guards, which isn't something that normally happens, but there was a reason for that I will get to in a second. You hear all the time about, oh, imagine if the Wolves would have taken Curry next. Well, one of the reasons why they didn't was, if you remember back then, there were questions about Curry as a franchise guard because we saw elite college shooters in the past look mediocre or just bad in the NBA, so people thought the same of Curry. You guys know when someone gets drafted in the NBA, NFL, anything, they do the generic press conference about how they were excited to join the team and they'll do whatever it takes to win, that whole deal. But with Rubio, it wasn't like that at all. Ricky's dad spoke to a local media outlet and said Ricky is going to play 1 or 2 more years in Spain first. The Wolves had an idea he might stay in Spain, so that's part of why they took Johnny Flynn as well. This was bad for Minnesota because they were just a year or so removed from the Kevin Garnett era. They were terrible and needed good players to speed up the rebuild. Their top draft pick was staying overseas for 2 more years while they rebuild. You don't even know how he fits with the roster, and now the front office and coaching staff has to work around that. Some teams try to take advantage of this situation. The Knicks needed a point guard badly at the time as well, and when Rubio's future in Minnesota was questionable, the Knicks were talking over a Rubio trade that never happened. That's why they drafted 2 point guards, for insurance if one of them didn't work out. Did it make sense? Not really, but hey, that's what happened. A year after the 2009 draft, a lot of the Rubio hype you saw on the internet and around NBA circles fell out. You weren't seeing, look at the next Steve Nash or next Pete Maravich hype stories every month. When Rubio returned to Spain after getting drafted, he was traded to FC Barcelona, and in the 39 games he started, he put up just 7 points per game and 4 assists. These are not numbers that scream out, this is a franchise-changing player that we need to build around. And it wasn't just the assist numbers that were off. He shot 31% from the field overall. He was strong for his position and quick with the ball, but he wasn't an explosive athlete jumping off of 1 or 2 feet, which made it difficult for him to create separation with his dribble and get to the basket. And not to mention, his outside shot was unreliable, so teams could guard him easier. It had to be tough for Minnesota to see Ricky's numbers, while his peers from the 2009 draft, like Brandon Jennings, Steph Curry, and DeMar DeRozan, were having strong rookie years. So finally, on June 1st, 2011, reports came out that Ricky Rubio and Minnesota reached a contract agreement. It was 2 years late, but Rubio finally had that press conference and was going to make his NBA debut. There was a lot of hype for his first season, so much hype that the Timberwolves home opener was sold out, which was something that didn't happen in years. The Minnesota Timberwolves basketball experience during those years was not something people were looking forward to, but early on in Rubio's first season, there was some excitement. His strengths as a point guard who makes great passes, gets everyone involved, and pushes the pace in transition to get easy points was there on day one. He was one of the leaders in total assists early on in the season. The 3-point shooting in Rubio's rookie season wasn't great, but people weren't too worried about it at the time because he was helping the team win games. It's really that simple. People will ignore a flaw here and there if you're successful, especially as a rookie. The Wolves were 21-19 at one point, which was amazing because they only won 17 games the year before. And then something happened to Rubio, which has been the biggest part of his story during his rookie contract. He got injured. Rubio tore his ACL in a game against the Lakers in March 2012, missing the rest of that season. And honestly, that first ACL injury probably changed the path of the Timberwolves era in the 2010s. This was pretty tough for Rubio because this ruined his first step explosion for the rest of his career. Those 41 games he played as a rookie was his athletic peak. And sadly, injuries were the story of Rubio's career in Minnesota. The next year, he only played in 57 games, and by the time it was his 3rd year with the team, he was basically the same player with minimal improvements, and the Timberwolves were still just as bad as when they first drafted Rubio. Here was the Rubio experience over 4 seasons. He tears his ACL after a promising rookie year. His 2nd year, he's trying to work his way back. In his 3rd year, he's fully healthy, but then in the 4th year, he hurts his ankle and it puts him out for 60 games. And it wasn't just the injuries, it was the outside shooting as well. According to this article, in the middle of the 2014-2015 season, he was the worst shooter in modern NBA history statistically. Since the 1980 season, when the 3-point shot was added to the court, no player in history has played more than 5,000 minutes while making a lower percentage of shots than Ricky Rubio. Now remember, this was the era of Dame Lillard, James Harden, Steph Curry, Kyrie, Westbrook, Kemba Walker, John Wall. You know, guys that can create their own shot, score close to 20 points per game every night, and force defenses to have to react to their passing and scoring. Rubio wasn't a consistent threat to score, so at times you're occasionally playing 4-on-5. Trade rumors surrounding Rubio were consistent by the time we reached this final year in Minnesota, and on the night of the 2017 NBA draft, he was traded to Utah. The Rubio era in Minnesota was complicated. I've seen people say, what if Rubio never got injured his rookie year, he improved his game, and the Wolves maybe make a playoff here and there? You also hear people say, he and everyone else in that roster had no chance with a terrible owner, new coaching staffs every 2 years, there was no stability for anybody in Minnesota, and I think that's a fair way to look at it when you factor in the front office and coaching staff. But then you hear other people say, he did get healthy, he still can't shoot or score with other elite point guards, and we made 0 playoff runs with someone who was built up as a franchise savior. After getting traded from Minnesota in 2017, you saw some of his best years in the NBA. With the Utah Jazz, he was a part of some pretty competitive teams that were in the playoffs 2 years in a row. And with the Phoenix Suns, he was that classic veteran point guard that helps guide a team with young players. His three-point shot improved to a league average level with Phoenix and Utah instead of the 30% he was shooting in Minnesota. Ricky Rubio and Donovan Mitchell's playstyles meshed really well because Rubio could be the setup man and Mitchell put all of his attention on scoring. In the 2018 playoffs, he had his best offensive game of his career. In a Game 3 win against the Oklahoma City Thunder, he scored 26 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, dished out 10 assists, and with the Phoenix Suns, Rubio was a part of that Suns team that went 8-0 in the bubble. That's kind of forgotten about. They had a new starting lineup of Ricky Rubio, Booker, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. He was setting up the offense and getting everybody in their sets. They looked like an actual NBA team on offense, and Devin Booker was able to do the off-ball stuff he does well since they had a point guard in Rubio to set him up. Rubio has moved around so much in the last 2 years after being traded from Phoenix. In November 2020, Rubio was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then 2 days later, the Thunder traded him back to Minnesota. Then in the summer of 2021, he was traded to Cleveland, and his impact there has been pretty similar to what he did with the Suns. As usual, his counting stats aren't anything to get excited about, but his impact has been part of why the Cavs were solid that year. If you were making a top 5 Sixth Man of the Year candidates from the 2022 season, you would have had Rubio in there. I would have. And him having another season-ending injury, this time in Cleveland, was part of the reason why the Cavs fell out of the 2022 playoff picture in the second half of that year. So why did Ricky Rubio not become a star-level player? I think one of the problems with Rubio was he came into the league right when the point guard position was changing. The point guard spot became a position where you need to be just as good, if not better, at creating for yourself than you are at getting everyone else on the team involved. Teams just weren't looking for guys who are pass first with a shaky outside shot. The quote-unquote true point guard, whatever people consider that to be, was getting moved out of the way for point guards who score a little bit. I mean, look at the NBA today. Pretty much every great point guard is someone putting up a huge amount of points. The Kyle Lowry, Rajon Rondo, and Chris Paul types who get everyone organized are not the norm anymore. Obviously, there are some pass-first point guards, but the Damian Lillard scoring guard is more of what you're seeing today and what teams are looking for. Rubio was and still is a good NBA player, and he didn't live up to those major expectations, but still, the guy was a starter in the Olympic gold medal game as a teenager. Expectations were nuts, honestly. I still think Rubio could be a player that helps you win a championship in the right situation off the bench. This Cavs team is probably a year away from truly contending, but hey, you never know. These what happened to this player videos are probably my favorite type of videos on the channel, so if you have any other players for this type of video, let me know. The only thing is, there's only so many NBA players with interesting stories who are out of the league, and some channels have already done the videos. I think they've done a pretty good job on some players, but I haven't seen anything on Ricky Rubio's hype, surprisingly. Appreciate if you made it to the end of this one. If you're still here, let me know if there's any other what happened to this player video you want to see.